Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 6 Part 8 based on novel. So let's start. An incomparable wild and violent wind swept over the pill room like a storm. Several cracked lines even appeared on the ground of the pill room at this moment. The surrounding experts were also shaken as they hurriedly withdrew. While they were stepping back, their numerous gazes were also staring intently at the point where the two figures had made contact. A black shadow suddenly shot out from within the wild and violent wind in front of their eyes. His legs moved a couple of times on the ground in a somewhat miserable manner, before he finally managed to stabilize his body. Swish! All the eyes were thrown towards the figure that had been shot out almost immediately. After which, a low sound of cold air being inhaled sounded within the pill room. This was because the one who ended up being shot out in a miserable fashion was actually Tianjin. Tianjin's golden body barrier was actually broken. Everyone was a little stunned when they saw Tianjin's body. The golden body barrier that originally existed over it had actually been broken. Even his clothes looked a little tattered. At a glance, he appeared quite miserable looking. While everyone was still in a state of shock, a strong figure slowly walked out with mountain-heavy footsteps from within the dust-permeated area. A black glow covered Little Flame's body as waves after waves of strange tiger roar was repeatedly emitted from within his body. The metal rod on his hand had a vaguely visible black-colored light tiger over it that was filled with fierceness and sharpness. Little Flame blinked his eyes, that were filled with a fierceness, and stared intently at the green-faced Tianjin. The blood within his body was also boiling at this moment. That heated desire to fight caused one's heart to be gripped in fear. Again. The metal rod in his hand cut through the air, carrying a sinister aura as it pointed towards Tianjin some distance away. Little Flame's low and deep voice had a fiery hot fighting intent that was not hidden. "You are seeking death." Tianjin was so infuriated by Little Flame's action that he ended up laughing. However, the original belittle expression within his eyes had already become pale. A solemnness replaced it. After the earlier exchange, he was aware that Little Flame was just as troublesome to deal with as Lin Dong. Just what is the background of these two fellows? They are clearly Nirvana stage experts, but their fighting strengths are this shocking. Tianjin quietly gritted his teeth. His heart felt a little surprise. Although he did not use all of his skills in the earlier exchange, he also understood that Little Flame in front of him should also have some trump cards remaining. Moreover, the latter's abnormal strength was something that caused him to also feel a slight fear within his heart. Cluck! While Tianjin's heart was feeling shocked at Little Flame's strength, some sound of footsteps were emitted from behind the latter. After which, Tianjin's eyes shrunk as he saw Lin Dong slowly walking over with a smile on his face. Immediately, his eyes turned towards the stone pillar. All he saw was that the samsara pill on it had already disappeared. How is that possible? The green-clothed man and the others were also greatly shocked. Earlier, the green-clothed man had personally experienced the strange energy around the samsara pill. Even his 2 Nirvana stage strength was unable to block it. How could Lin Dong retrieve it so smoothly? You have actually broke through the ring of life and death. Tianjin's voice was also filled with disbelief. From the looks of his appearance, it seemed that he was actually also aware of the existence of the ring of life and death. I was merely lucky. Lin Dong smiled and casually mentioned. However, this caused Tianjin's fury to burn. "Big brother, have you succeeded?" Little Flame inquired with some joy. The fierceness in Little Flame's eyes was reduced when he saw Lin Dong. "Yes." Lin Dong nodded. His eyes glanced at Little Flame in a somewhat strange manner. Originally, he thought that it was quite good if Little Flame could block Tianjin. However, he did not expect that Little Flame had actually directly shattered Tianjin's golden body barrier. Even Lin Dong himself had underestimated the fighting strength of Little Flame. The expressions in the eyes of the surrounding people became a little complicated when they heard that Lin Dong had obtained the samsara pill. A few of them contemplated a malicious thought in their mind, but most of them were wary of those two. Lin Dong and Little Flame might not beat them in numbers, but the two of them were clearly extraordinary individuals. Both of them were existences that could fight with someone like Tianjin. If the two of them were to join forces, it was likely that even someone as strong as Tianjin would be forced to retreat. Green and white interchanged over Tianjin's face at this moment. Clearly, his heart was quite furious. With his reputation in this northwestern region, there were seldom any occurrence that he had ended up losing out. This time around, however, he had clearly suffered a great loss in Lindong's hand. It is likely not going to be as easy as you think if you wish to take the samsara pill. Tianjin, whose fury had surged in his heart, was finally unable to endure any longer and spoke in a furious voice. "All right, in that case, allow us brothers to experience the might of the fierce wolf." Lindong smiled slightly and said, "You?" Tianjin was stunned. His expression was a little purplish. He was not afraid of Lindong or Little Flame alone. However, if the two of them were to join forces, even he did not possess the confidence to beat them. Originally, he wanted to use his words to provoke Lindong to exchange blows with him alone, but Lindong's words had directly sent his words back into him. Clearly, if they were to fight, Lindong would not fight him one-on-one. Little Flame held the metal rod and stood behind Lindong. His eyes looked down at Tianjin from a higher position. That mighty body of his possessed a deterrent effect. In the face of Lindong's half-smiling appearance and Little Flame's eyes that were filled with fighting intent, Tianjin's reasoning finally suppressed his fury. His expression was green as he suddenly turned around. "Lindong, don't be too pleased. This matter is not finished." After tossing these words that were filled with killing intent, Tianjin finally turned his body and left in an unwilling manner. His body flashed a couple of times before exiting the pill room and disappearing. Everyone watched Tianjin leaving in a somewhat ashen manner and were immediately completely silent. They smacked their mouths together and their eyes looked at Lindong and Little Flame with fear. Clearly, they did not expect that even someone like Tianjin was unable to gain any advantage in the hands of this person from a low-rank empire. This person was indeed a vicious character. No wonder he was able to swiftly build a reputation for himself. Lindong was completely unconcerned about these surrounding gazes. He swept his gaze around and glanced at the green-clothed man's group. The latter's entire body quivered when he saw Lindong's eyes looking over. Immediately, they hurriedly turned around and left in a miserable manner. That appearance was as though they were extremely afraid that Lindong would find trouble with them. Having witnessed Lindong's and Little Flame's fighting ability earlier, they no longer had the arrogance that they had at the start. "Let's go." Lindong casually glanced at the green-clothed man's group leaving in a miserable fashion. He did not have any intention of giving chase and settling the scores with them. Instead, he waved his hand towards Little Flame and said, now that he had obtained the samsara pill, Little Martin's problem was considered to be completely resolved. Next would likely be the final main event, the inheritance of the four great mysterious sects. If Lindong was able to obtain one of them, he could be considered to have gained a bountiful reward from this trip to the ancient treasure trove. Lindong did not hesitate much after saying those words. He directly leaped out of the pill room. The crowd automatically parted and formed a path wherever he passed. No one actually dared to obstruct him. Lindong and Little Flame directly left the place in front of many complicated eyes. He appeared a little free and easy, causing some people to let out a quiet sigh. Perhaps after leaving this ancient treasure trove, 2 more people would be added to the ranks of the 4 great overlords of the northwestern region. Currently the pill ground had already attracted quite a number of people. All the tightly shut pill rooms had also been opened. The nirvana pills within them had been completely snatched away. That originally quiet pill grounds currently appeared like a village that had been patronized by robbers. It was a complete mess. Lindong and Little Flame were somewhat speechless as they looked at the many greedy figures within the pill grounds after having left the pill room. It was likely that he no longer had any hope of obtaining some nirvana pills. They immediately decided not to remain in this place any longer. Instead, they directly left this pill grounds and rushed towards the deepest part of this island. Little Martin, we have already obtained the samsara pill. When do you intend to use it? Lin Dong rushed through the midair, while inquiring in his heart. We should do it after this matter is over. It is not easy to recover a physical body. Little Martin's voice quickly sounded. Lin Dong could hear the excitement and the impatience that was difficult to hide from within the voice. All right. Lin Dong smiled and nodded. His heart also let out a sigh as though a giant weight has been lifted from his heart. He had finally resolved Little Martin's problem. Lin Dong. Lin Dong was surprised. Thank you. Little Martin's voice was faint. However, it was a rare one that was unaccompanied by laughter. There was a seriousness and sincerity within it that he had never seen before. I am really not used to you being this courteous. Aren't you some ultimate expert? I am making an investment. Lin Dong smiled and shook his head. Ha ha, relax, once Grandpa Martin regains my strength, I will definitely not allow anyone to bully you. Little Martin laughed out loud. Lin Dong also grinned. His eyes turned towards the deep regions of the island. He could sense a strange ripple from that spot. It was likely that the place should be the remains of the 4 great mysterious sects. I am really looking forward to it. Lin Dong muttered to himself. He really wanted to know just how powerful the inheritance of the 4 great mysterious sects were, given that they were the ones in charge of this Jiangang alliance. Lin Dong's mind suddenly became focused just when this anticipation had surged into Lin Dong's heart. His eyes suddenly shot towards his front. A figure was standing straight on an enormous tree at that spot. That handsome face as well as the dark cold eyes were extremely familiar looking. Lin Langqian. The corner of Lin Dong's mouth was slowly lifted into an icy cold arc when he saw this face. Seems like we finally meet again. Lin Dong's forward-moving body gradually came to a stop. Finally, he landed on the top of an enormous tree. His gaze was focused on an extremely familiar figure in front of him. The two of them came from the same empire, the same clan, and possessed the same surname. Similarly, they had the qualification of a genius. However, the relationship between them were like fire and water, neither could tolerate the other's existence. This kind of relationship had perhaps existed since Lin Langqian seriously injured Lin Dong's father back then. After various subsequent events, their relationship had reached a point where it was impossible to reconcile. Lin Dong clearly understood that Lin Langqian was his biggest source of trouble. It was impossible for the latter's hatred towards him to be reduced. If this fellow was to gain the slightest opportunity, Lin Dong knew that Lin Langqian would definitely attack without hesitation. Similarly, Lin Dong would not hold back if he possessed such an opportunity. Looking at it from a certain point of view, the character of the both of them were somewhat similar. White clouds flowed in the azure sky. The two figures were standing at the top of 2 trees. They looked at each other across the distance while a chillness surfaced within their eyes. Even the air showed signs of solidifying. Little Flame stood behind Lin Dong. His large hand slowly rubbed on the metal rod that emitted an icy coldness. His body had leaned forward a little and there was a vague fierce explosive aura being gathered under both of his eyes. Having followed Lin Dong for so many years, Little Flame was clearly aware of the grudge between Lin Dong and Lin Langqian. He was aware of the threat Lin Langqian posed towards Lin Dong. This kind of enemy that was a threat to Lin Dong must be eliminated. Lin Dong, we meet again. A gentle breeze blew past. An extremely chilly smile was formed on Lin Langqian's handsome face as he slowly spoke. Are you finally willing to come out after hiding for so long? Lin Dong laughed softly. You should know how I am. If I do not have the confidence, I will not easily reveal myself. However, since I dare to reveal myself now, perhaps the one who will be in danger is you. Lin Langqian laughed. It seemed as though he had recovered the kind of confidence and haughtiness that he had when Lin Dong met him for the first time. It seemed that during this period that he was missing, he had similarly gained quite a fortunate and lucky encounter. I will not give you a second chance to flee. Lin Dong lowered his eyes slightly and spoke in a faint voice. I will not make the same mistake as I did back then a second time. The person that the Lin clan had never seen before would still be me. Once I defeat you and join a super sect in the future, all I will need to do is to say a word and the Lin family from the Yang city which you are protecting will completely collapse. Lin Langqian smiled in a dense manner. You won't have the chance. Lin Dong stretched his lazy waist and continued, let's stop saying these nonsensical words. I also really wish to see how much you have improved after missing for such a long time. I share the same thought. The denseness on Lin Langqian's face became even greater. Immediately, he took a sudden step forward. Immediately, powerful Yuan power whizzed past in a dominating fashion. That strength had actually reached the level of a 1 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. I know that you have defeated Shakuran of the Devil Cliff Empire. However, coincidentally, a short while ago, there was a 2 Yuan Nirvana stage expert who also fled after being seriously injured by me. Bright golden glow suddenly spread out from Lin Langqian's body. His body flashed and a punch struck onto the air in front of him. Incomparably sharp wind directly covered Lin Dong within it. Lin Dong extended his hand. He clenched it and his majestic mental power was spat out. It formed a large mental power hand and bombarded that sharp wind. This level is far from sufficient. Lin Langqian did not reveal any surprise after his attack was blocked. He had also heard the rumors about Lin Dong during this period of time. Naturally, he understood that the current Lin Dong was already much stronger than he was back then. If he did not possess any special techniques, it was likely extremely difficult to defeat Lin Dong. In that case, I shall let you taste what is called a true martial arts. A cold smile surfaced on Lin Langqian's face. Immediately, his eyes were focused as majestic Yuan power swept out. Immediately, the natural energy began to show signs of boiling. Moreover, the Yuan power that spread out from within Lin Langqian's body seemed to be vaguely mixed with a kind of special feeling. Soul martial arts? Lin Dong raised his head and looked at the sky which was becoming dimmer. A surprise also flashed across his eyes. It was unexpected that Lin Langqian actually possessed such good fortune. Lin Dong, only I, Lin Langqian, can be considered a child favored by the heavens. I am not someone whom you can compare with. Lin Langqian's feet stepped onto the empty air. The sky behind him dimmed and there seemed to be an enormous illusionary figure vaguely appearing behind him. The illusionary figure stomped his foot onto the ground and a kind of special ripple spread. It was as though the figure was a martial ancestor that shook the world. Martial ancestor rotating heaven skill. A low cry was suddenly emitted from Lin Langqian's mouth. That enormous illusionary behind him seemed to have extended his enormous arms across the sky. Immediately, the natural Yuan power exploded. Die? The vast and mighty sky seemed to have shrunk in the face of that huge pair of hands. Finally, it actually transformed into a light curtain that shrunk and expanded in an inconsistent manner. An extremely powerful ripple spread apart in an uncontrolled manner. The light curtain was held by the enormous illusionary hand. After which, his palm blasted apart the air and ruthlessly smashed towards Lin Dong. Bang bang. The sea of forest below was actually blasted into powder in the face of this pressure. Even the ground had been shaken until it split. At this moment, quite a number of people were rushing over towards this place due to the appearance of the 4 great mysterious sects' remains. The great commotion here had basically attracted the focus of numerous eyes. It is actually a soul martial arts? Who is this great being? The person seems like he is attacking Lin Dong. This person really don't know how to live peacefully no matter where he goes. Exclamations immediately sounded when these gazes saw that large illusionary figure behind Lin Langqian. Due to Lin Langqian's disappearance, no one found him familiar. However, Lin Dong was a newcomer in the northwestern region whose reputation was leaping extremely quickly. Quite a number of people found him to be familiar. This feeling, it seems to be the soul martial arts of the ground martial sect. A grave expression flashed across Lin Dong's eyes as he looked at the enormous illusionary figure behind Lin Langqian. From the looks of it, it seemed that the inheritance of the ground martial sect, the strongest amongst the 5 great protector sects, was actually obtained by Lin Langqian. Humph. Lin Dong let out a deep breath. He did not slide the attack. A martial arts on the level of the soul martial arts was too powerful. Even he had to be careful when facing it. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Surging yuan power suddenly whizzed out from within Lin Dong's body at this instant. After which, it transformed into 5 enormous yuan power-like pillars which in turn became 5 ancient large fingers. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger, merge. Lin Dong's hand grabbed forward and the 5 ancient large fingers immediately merged in a lightning-like fashion. That illusionary space immediately blasted apart. A blurry figure that seemed to dominate the world once again appeared from within the darkness. That Lin Dong actually possessed a soul martial arts as well. When the illusionary figure appeared within the empty space, the expressions of those experts who had thrown their gazes over immediately changed once again. All of them were filled with shock. Great desolate imprisoning heavenly hand. Surging yuan power gushed out from Lin Dong's body in a somewhat crazy and uncontrolled manner. His hand suddenly grabbed forward. At the same time, that illusionary figure also slowly extended his hand. That illusionary-like hand seemed to be a little real at this moment. Crack! The empty space seemed to have cracked apart, forming a cracked line, when the illusionary hand grabbed forward. That ancient large hand that was merged from the great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger directly penetrated through the space and charged towards that enormous illusionary figure behind Lin Langqian with lightning-like speed. Swoosh! The attacks of both parties appeared to be even faster than lightning. Even Lin Dong and Lin Langqian themselves could only see a ray of light flashing past their eyes. In the next instant, the 2 martial arts attacks that caused the hearts of countless of people to be filled with palpitation collided together like meteorites. Boom! The world seemed to have trembled when the collision occurred. Frightening energy wind immediately spread apart. A mountain peak below was directly covered by this wind. It immediately collapsed and large rocks flew. Roar! A low and deep roar was emitted from Lin Langqian's mouth. His face was a little flush red as the yuan power within his body surged out crazily. Even that enormous large figure behind him also seemed to be emitting a sharp domineering roar. Lin Dong immediately felt a great pressure when Lin Liantian's martial arts soul was emitting a roar. He quickly inhaled a deep breath of air as his eyes swiftly turned icy cold. His hand was suddenly clenched. Break! The word break resounded over the place. However, it was not emitted from Lin Dong's mouth. Instead, it was emitted from the illusionary figure in the sky. That voice was actually emitted from the martial art soul of the great desolate imprisoning heavenly hand. Bang! This voice was ethereal and ancient. However, it contained a kind of extremely terrifying pressure. Even the enormous illusionary figure behind Lin Langqian seemed to tremble a little. After which, it gradually faded in front of Lin Langqian's tightly shrunk eyes before finally vanishing completely. This martial art soul of his was actually shattered by Lin Dong's martial art soul. The soul martial arts was similarly divided into low, middle and high grade. The most obvious manner to differentiate the strength between these 3 grades was to see just how strong the martial art soul was. From a certain point of view, the stronger the strength of the person who created this martial arts, the stronger the might of the soul martial arts. Of course, this was not absolute. The different soul martial arts that are created by the same expert would also possess a difference in strength. This difference originated from the spirit that was bestowed. Some of the martial arts which they thought of as important would likely be bestowed with quite a dense spirituality. If it was randomly created by them, the spirituality would likely be a little weaker. Clearly, this great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger which Lin Dong had obtained was not something that was randomly created by that legendary great desolated emperor. The strength of the great desolated emperor back then was likely much stronger compared to the sect leader of the ground martial sect, who was the martial art soul that Lin Langqian had summoned. Otherwise, it would be difficult to gain such an advantage when the 2 martial art soul collided. Boom! Powerful, wild and violent energy wind swept through the sky. The numerous surrounding gazes carried some shock as they looked at the enormous illusionary figure crumbling behind Lin Langqian. This kind of collision between soul martial arts was not something that they could witness often. The martial art's soul that the fellow summoned using his soul martial arts should be the sect leader of the ground martial sect. People calls him the martial ancestor. His strength could cause the world to crumble. It is unexpected that even such a soul martial arts was unable to block Lin Dong's attack. The soul martial arts that Lin Dong had displayed is not simple. I wonder just which powerful person had created it. It is actually this strong. Numerous private conversations that were filled with surprise spread throughout the sky. Clearly, the amazement that was created by this scene was quite a great one. It actually shattered my soul martial arts. A dark solemnness flashed across Lin Langtian's expression in front of the shocked gazes all over the sky. He was naturally familiar with Lin Dong's great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger. Back then, he had similarly obtained a martial arts from manifestation tablet back then. However, he did not expect that Lin Dong's great desolate imprisoning heavenly finger was actually just the initial stage of this complete martial arts. With the increase in Lin Dong's strength and his familiarity with this martial arts, the might of this martial arts was truly unleashed by him. This fellow is not so simple. I sensed some dangerous ripple within his body. Lin Langtian's expression was gloomy when a hoarse voice suddenly sounded within his heart. Grumble. Lin Langtian's eyes shrunk slightly. He did not doubt this Yuan spirit within his body. He was able to obtain such an achievement mostly because of the existence of this Yuan spirit. He also understood just how powerful this Yuan spirit was. It was unexpected that Lin Dong was actually able to cause this spirit to feel a sense of danger. Is it due to the demon spirit within his body? Lin Langtian inquired. I am unable to sense the fluctuation from that demonic spirit any longer and don't know about its situation. Even though you have currently obtained the inheritance of the ground martial sect, it is extremely difficult for you to kill Lin Dong. That Yuan spirit voiced his opinion. Lin Langtian immediately clenched both of his hands tightly when he heard this. A refusal to resign to the situation flashed across his eyes. Originally, he thought that after half a year of bitter training and unique encounters, he could be considered as a top-tier person even in the northwestern region, and it shouldn't be too difficult for him to finish off Lin Dong. However, he did not expect that Lin Dong's improvement actually did not lose out to him. Don't bother about him. Currently, obtaining the inheritance of the four great mysterious sect is the most important thing. The ground martial sect is considered the strongest of the 5 great protector sects. However, it is still much weaker compared to the 4 great mysterious sect. If you are able to obtain one of the inheritance within it, you will definitely be able to suppress Lin Dong. At that time, he will definitely be unable to escape from your hands. Lin Langtian knitted his brows. His eyes were dark and cold as he looked at Lin Dong, who was standing as straight as a spear. Finally, he could only clench his teeth unwillingly. He turned around and withdrew without saying any unnecessary words. Currently, the most important thing to do was indeed to obtain the inheritance. As for Lin Dong, the gap between the two would be pulled apart after he obtained the inheritance. At that time, even if Lin Dong possessed the powerful soul martial arts from the manifestation tablet, Lin Dong would definitely have difficulty contending against him. Do you intend to beat a temporarily retreat? Lin Dong's eyes narrowed as he looked at Lin Langtian's figure. The surrounding Yuan power fluctuation had also gradually calmed down. He knew that Lin Langtian wanted to head for the remains of the 4 great mysterious sect. That place was also where Lin Dong was intending to go. I said before that I will not give you a second chance to flee. Lin Dong softly muttered to himself. He had already made up his mind. Lin Langtian must be finished off in this ancient treasure trove. This thorn had existed for too long and Lin Langtian must not be allowed to keep becoming stronger. However, he knew that he must obtain the inheritance of the 4 great martial sect before resolving this issue. He also understood the importance of the inheritance. If Lin Langtian, who had already obtained the inheritance of the ground martial sect, was to obtain it, it was likely that this person would completely surpass him. At that time, given Lin Langtian's character, he would definitely not show any mercy towards him. Little flame, let's go. Lin Dong waved his hand. He ignored the many stunned gazes in the sky around him. His body moved and swiftly rushed towards the deep regions of the ancient treasure trove, where space was fluctuating. Swoosh swoosh. After the two of them left, the many experts who were observing the battle from around the place finally recovered. Their eyes were filled with a fiery hot greed as they looked towards the deep regions. They did not utter any nonsense as their figures rushed forward. Immediately, many ear-piercing sound of wind being split apart resounded over this place. Everyone knew that after experiencing numerous danger, they were about to reach the center area of this ancient treasure trove. The treasure at that place was sufficient to change their trajectory within this ancient battlefield. The space within this ancient treasure trove was undoubtedly much more solid compared to the other places. Those cracked lines that covered the space in the outside did not appear in this place. The air contained an ancient taste. The silence of this remains, which had been sealed for countless number of years, was finally broken at this moment. Lin Dong and Little Flame rushed through the sky. Their eyes looked all around them and they could see many figures darting towards a similar direction. The aura of these people were quite strong. Of course, not a single person who could arrive at this place relied only on their luck. The space there. Lin Dong's eyes suddenly focused while he maintained his fast flying speed. After which, he saw that the space not far in front of him had actually become extremely distorted. There was an incomparably wild, violent spatial ripple vaguely spreading from it. There seemed to be an ancient large square located in that distorted space. Its grand and mighty aura could still cause Lin Dong and the others to be shaken despite it being blocked by the distorted space. Is that place the remains of the four great mysterious sect? Lin Dong looked at the ancient square. Both of his eyes revealed a heated expression. He had finally arrived. After Lin Dong approached the place, he discovered that there were already quite a number of figures suspended around the distorted space. A couple of familiar figures was also amongst them. Liu Bai's group was at the northern position. They had also clearly discovered the arrival of Lin Dong and Little Flame. Immediately Liu Bai revealed a profound-looking smile on his face. It was likely that he had heard of the many events Lin Dong had encountered while making his way here. There were three figures located a short distance from Liu Bai's group. Lin Dong had already seen one of them. He was the fierce wolf Tianjin, who had fought with him over the samsara pill. A strong man with a body size that did not lose to Little Flame was standing a short distance away. The back of this strong man was carrying a huge black-colored axe. An extremely wild and fierce sharp aura vaguely surged out from within his body, causing quite a number of gazes to be involuntarily thrown towards him. Not far towards Tianjin's right was a skinny-looking man. This man was wearing a beast robe. His appearance was ordinary, but the dense sharp glint that would occasionally flash across both of his eyes allowed one to understand that he was not a kind person. Moreover, the ripple that was seeping out from within his body was not weaker than Tianjin and that man carrying an axe. The two other overlords of the northwestern region, huh? Lin Dong's eyes glanced over these two people. Clearly, there should not be anyone else other than Liu Bai, Tianjin, and the other two overlords who possessed this aura. While Lin Dong's gaze was glancing at these two, the gazes of Tianjin and the two others were also thrown over. Tianjin's eyes were dark and vicious while the eyes of the other two also revealed some caution. However, they did not reveal any haughtiness or disdain, which was a rare phenomenon. Someone who could cause Tianjin to suffer a loss was not someone whom they could underestimate. Lin Dong's sight leaped over these two and saw Lin Langtian, who had just exchanged blows with him. The latter's icy cold eyes looked at him before withdrawing it with a cold smile. Seems like you have quite a number of enemies. A voice suddenly sounded beside Lin Dong while Lin Langtian was smilingly coldly at the former. Lin Dong raised his eyebrows. He turned around to take a look. The person who had arrived was wearing a black robe. He was actually Yang Sen, whom Lin Dong had met when he had just entered the ancient treasure trove. You have defeated Shikuan and should have obtained his ancient secret key, right? Yang Sen's somewhat pale white face looked at Lin Dong from under the black robes and asked. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes. He remained non-committal. Currently, he was no longer the same person as he was when he had just entered the ancient treasure trove. At that time, he might be extremely afraid of Yang Senator now, Lin Dong was not afraid even if he had to cross blows with Yang Sen. In that case, you are in possession of 2 ancient secret key. Haha, how interesting. It looks like you will have quite a great amount of trouble later. I wonder if you have the ability to endure through it. Yang Sen laughed faintly as he uttered some inexplicable words. After which, he did not stay. His body moved and rushed forward. Ancient secret key, for great mysterious sect. Lin Dong frowned slightly as he muttered to himself. He seemed to have vaguely understood something. This video will end here.